Again, nice work everyone in Unit 3. We've been really thrilled to see all the interactions and connections between people on the discussion forums, and Wenmin and I are looking forward to reading your thoughts on the standards and the assessment assignments, and we're hoping to get those grades up by Wednesday at some point. In this video, we're going to give some of our thoughts on the ideas from Unit 3, and then we're going to give a quick preview of what's coming this week in Unit 4, the final week of the class. I'm glad people resonated with the Rees essay. The next time I see him, I'm going to let Bob know about some of the ideas and responses that you had. Looking across the discussion, there was definitely a lot of negativity about the standardized testing system happening right now in the US. There seems to be a disconnect between the testing companies and the teachers, so that the teachers don't always know what's going to be on the tests, and also teachers don't get the results in time to really help the student. There's also the fact that students seem to have to sit through so many tests. And people also talked about some negative aspects of the school culture, where there can be anxieties and there are messages about performance on procedural items being more important than conceptual understanding and creative thinking or problem solving and communication. There also is the big issue of Pearson and other testing companies being big profit makers. So instead of a system based solely on the benefits to students and schools and society, it's a system where the students and schools are balanced together with the profit motive. On the other hand, people pointed out that preparing for tests can give students a goal and can motivate some students to practice and learn. Preparing for important tests is also a relevant life skill. Think of the GRE, the bar exam, medical exams, and so forth that are part of many professions. The other key thing to remember in the discussions about testing is that although there are many negatives about our testing system in the US right now, there are also some potential benefits from standardized tests. It's just that maybe we need to refine the system to maximize the benefits and minimize the negatives. Some of the other benefits for having some sort of standardized testing system is to be able to make meaningful comparisons and to track improvement in the educational system over time. They can also be a useful part of school accountability if used appropriately. It's just that the problem right now is the tests are not being used appropriately. They're either being overemphasized instead of considering it amongst other factors, or the tests are being used as measures of teacher effectiveness rather than measures of student knowledge, which is what they're designed for. People also discussed the example of Japan, which came up in the Rees article. It's important to put Japan's testing into the broader educational context, where they have a centralized education ministry and a national curriculum. They also have public development of the curriculum materials and tests rather than private for-profit companies. Moreover, the districts and teachers in Japan are more involved in the grading of the tests, so there is more of a direct connection between them, the students and the teachers, to the tests in terms of interpreting the results and using them to inform instructional decisions. In Unit 3, you also had rich discussions about how you use assessment data in your own practice. We noticed themes along 3 categories: using assessments to inform your teaching, using assessments to gain insight into student learning, and using assessments to drive curriculum decisions at your school. It was interesting to see a contrast between the usefulness of your specific assessments and the critiques of the standardized assessments. One final general thought that we had was that many people, not just here in Unit 3, but whenever we talk to teachers about using assessment data, there's often a focus on how to interpret and use the wrong answers, or to identify the problems that students had the most difficulty with. Focusing on the errors or the difficulties revealed by an assessment is of course valuable, but we encourage everyone to also consider what can be used from the correct portions of the students' responses. By considering the correct responses, you can see the types of approaches that students are deciding to take on those problems and that they're having success with. And you can also see what their strengths and preferences are, which might be helpful in planning your next lessons to build on students' prior knowledge. We also encourage you to think about the variance in your assessment data and not just the average. Our goal should always be not just to raise the averages, but to raise the average and simultaneously reduce the variance by helping the struggling students to make significant gains. So with this in mind, it can be very helpful to think about where the spread is happening and not just where the wrong answers are happening. So overall, very nice work in Unit 3. And believe it or not, we are now already into the final week of the course where we're going to be having Unit 4 right now, and that ends on July 1st on Friday, so it's a bit of a shorter unit. If you do need the weekend to submit your assignment for Unit 4, that's fine because we're actually going to be doing the grading and getting final grades in probably by Tuesday, July 5th. So in Unit 4, because of the shortened week, there's less to do than in Unit 3. We have one reading for you to complete about digital textbooks, and then the assignment that needs to be turned in for Unit 4 is a reflection paper on that reading. And just for people who are interested, particularly if you teach elementary or middle school, we posted an optional resource that you can check out. It's a website where they've organized the math standards into student learning trajectories, and they also have resources and explanations for each standard. It's a pretty cool site if you want to explore it. There are two required discussions in this unit. One is about curriculum and parents, which I think might get pretty spicy, and another discussion is related to the new Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA. Those two are required, and there is also an optional discussion forum where you can post about your method for finding online curriculum resources. With regard to the discussion forums, remember to post early in the week and then return again later in the week to add more thoughts or to reply to other people's posts. See you online.